Come on. Hello, everybody. How are you? Good to see you. It's way too quiet in here today, so as you take your seats, tell someone a fun fact about yourself that they don't know. Come on, it's too quiet in here. And if you sat next to no one, then that's fine. That's fine. We'll find you a partner. Band, thank you so much. It's absolutely brilliant. Thank you. Thanks. So tell me a fun fact about yourself. Where you been? What you doing? Hey, I guess next week we don't have to wear face masks anymore. We don't have to do loads of things. Still don't know what the rules are, but we'll give you an update, I guess. I think we can party again. I think that's legal now. There's going to be a party at the gates, at the edge. Hello, everybody. Okay, we're in a series called Marked by a Mantle, and we started this year by talking about this idea that you were made for more. You're made for more than just the daily grind. That last year was a year of resetting some habits, behaviors, values. This year is a year of resend. We had a very powerful time last week where we started some bonfires. Anybody start a fire last week? Show me your hands. Anybody start a fire? Okay, yeah, a few of us start. And I've been really encouraged to hear the stories about what God's been doing, speaking to them in this season. If I do cough, I have tested negative, but I am probably going to be the weird one in the room. You ever been on a bus or a train and someone coughs and then everyone goes, you have it, don't you? I'm going to be that guy, that's fine. Okay, so today we're going to carry on with our story, looking at Elisha, looking at his journey from the moment God called him for something more to the moment where he was then given a mantle. So a few weeks ago, we talked about how this lovely mantle was cast over him. This is the representation that he was going to be the next prophet after Elijah. We're now going to move on from that part of the story, and if you need to catch up, then if you go to 1 Kings 19 in your Bible this week, have a read of that, or listen to or watch the podcasts. And we're going to move a little bit further on in the story to where Elisha's had a few years under Elijah's apprenticing. So he's had a few years, he's been helping him, serving him, growing in his leadership capacity, understanding more about theology and what the role of a prophet was all those years ago. And we're going to actually stay in a little weird story, and it's in the book of 2 Kings. Okay, so if you have your Bibles today, please turn to 2 Kings. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. If you have a paper Bible, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Excellent. And if you have an app, then, you're cool, so what's up, Welcome, peace. So turn to the book of 2 Kings, chapter 2, and this is the sequel to 1 Kings. 1 Kings is all about Elijah and God establishing his kingdom, and then the book of 2 Kings is where he hands that off to Elisha, and then God grows his kingdom even more. And we're starting in chapter 2. So 2 Kings, chapter 2. And we're going to start from verse 2. Here we go. After a few years of apprenticing, there seems to be an agreement amongst the peer group and those around them that it was a time that Elijah was going to pass on the mantle officially. The mantle, the cloak was cast over Elisha, but he wasn't carrying it yet. Elijah was still carrying it. He was the leader, and there was a moment in time to come that he would pass that mantle over to Elisha. So, verse 2. Elijah said to Elisha, "Stay here. The Lord has sent me to Bethel." Bethel, this word Bethel means the house of God, God's house. But Elisha said, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave." Today's title is called, "I Will Not Leave." So they went to Bethel. Very interesting. Elisha, the mantle's on me. God has sent me to Bethel. God has sent me to go, so you stay here. Elisha knows that it could be any day now until the mantle's passed to him. So he said, "No, as surely as you live and as surely as God lives, I'm following you. I'm coming with you." So they go to Bethel. Verse 3. The company of prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and asked. The company of prophets were basically his peer group, those who were looking to him to be the next leader. A company of prophets at Bethel came out to Elisha and asked, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" "Yes, I know," Elisha replied. "So be quiet." It's such like, you can tell this is the NIV translation. It's so kind, isn't it? It's like, shut up. Like, I know it's going to happen, but please just stop talking. You're creating gossip. Why is it that sometimes out of good intentions, our friends want to push things faster than they need to go? Maybe they're interested, maybe they just like us, but sometimes we feel this pressure to get things done faster, to be a certain person faster, to do things faster. But if there's a lesson here to be learned, is that Elisha wasn't determined by his peer group, but he stuck with what he believed, which is when it's ready, God will decide. So just zip it, pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin. Please jump around. If you got that joke, you're definitely a millennial or older. Okay, so let's just say that. Please avail yourself of jumping around. Okay, what are we talking about? Jesus. Okay, so verse 4 comes along. So they've gone to Bethel. Elijah's like, "Listen, God sent me. He's not sent you. So no, I'm staying with you. And everybody, pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin. Literally, just stop talking. I've got to follow." So then he goes to Bethel. So he goes to Bethel, and then after that, this is what happens next. Verse 4. Then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, Elisha. The Lord has sent me to Jericho." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So they went to Jericho a second time. And the company of prophets at Jericho went up to Elisha and asked him, "Do you know that the Lord is going to take your master from you today?" And he said, "Yes, I know." He replied, "Pack it up, pack it in. Let me begin. Please shut up." Verse 6, then Elisha said to him, so they'd done the business in Jericho, then Elijah said to him, "Stay here, the Lord has sent me to the Jordan." That's not a human person, Jordan, who sells dodgy things around the corner. No, it's a place. "Sent me to the Jordan River." And he replied, "As surely as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you." So the two of them walked on. 50 men from the company of prophets. This is a lot of people right now. 50 of them came round and said, and they stood at a distance facing the place where Elijah and Elisha had stopped at the Jordan. Elijah took his cloak, he rolled it up, and he struck the water with it. The water divided to the right and to the left, and the two of them crossed over on dry land. After this point, and we're going to get to this next week, Elijah is taken up in chariots of fire in a whirlwind, and the mantle falls, and it's on Elisha to pick that mantle up and wear it for himself. But before we go there, what is going on? What does this story mean to Bethel, then to Jericho, then to somewhere near the Jordan River? Why is this? Well, I think the most powerful thing you can say is, "I will not leave you." The most powerful thing you can say to someone you're in a relationship with is, "I'm not going to leave." Say if a friend comes up to you and shares something really shameful, really something they're embarrassed about, the most powerful statement you can make to them is, "I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to stay with you. I'm going to stand with you." The most powerful thing you can say to your spouse is, "Hey, I can change and you can change. Hey, there's a lot of change that you need to do, but I can change a little, but we can change it. I will not." The most powerful thing you can say to your future is, no matter the challenge that you've got now, the uncertainty that you've got now, "I'm not going to leave what God has asked me to do. I will not leave." So what do these things mean? Well, very quickly, Bethel means the house of God. So Elijah says, "I'm going to go to the house of God." Now think about this. Elisha knows that the mantle is going to fall any time. He knows it, people, and he's ready. So if there's one place that the mantle is going to be given over, it's in church. If you're from Wigan, that's what it's called, church. It's going to be in church, innit? If there's one place in front of all the believers, in front of all that he's going to... Abby's on the keyboard in Bethel. You've got Andy, you've got these guys on the band, it's beautiful. It's like the latest hit from the Bethel worship, and suddenly it descends from heaven, and I therefore become the prophet of the Lord. If it's going to happen anywhere, it's going to be in Bethel, but it doesn't. It doesn't. So then he says, right, we're going to go to Jericho. And so he might be thinking to himself, if there's one place where I'm going to get the mantle, it's going to be in Jericho. You know, one of the oldest cities in the world. This beautiful fortress that's filled with marketplaces and rich people. You know, if it's going to be one place that God for set us up in the future, I'm going to receive the mantle in the city. If it's not in God's house, it's going to be in the city. And they go and do the business there. They go and do the stuff they need to do. And then nothing. He doesn't quite get it yet. Disappointed, disappointed, disappointed. If there's one place God's not going to give me what he promised me, it's in the middle of flipping nowhere, right? It's not going to happen because no one can see it. You know, no one's going to witness it. It's just a piece of dirt. So, yeah, sure, do you know what? I'll follow you to the Jordan River, to wherever that is. I'll follow you, and yeah, here we go, you know. I firmly believe that God can take a nowhere and turn it into a somewhere. I believe that. I'll tell you a story. I went on a stag do abroad once, and it was this guy, stag do friend of mine. I won't say his name, but it rhymes with Candalland. And it was probably one of the greatest stag do's of my entire life. Well, we only lost 3 of the lads that came with us. It was a good ratio. Here, come on, we're going to Cannes stag do. It's in Barcelona. I'm like, yeah, how much does it cost? Yeah, go on, we'll all go Barcelona, right? It wasn't in Barcelona. The plane was to Barcelona. Instead, when we got to the airport, we then caught a 3-hour coach ride towards France to a place called Malgrat de Mar. Where is Malgrat de Mar, you ask? Not even the mayor of the town knows where it is. So we called it Mal de Crap Lafar because we were like, where is this, right? So we end up in what looked like, I don't know, Morecambe on antidepressants, right? But it was really sunny. So we get there, and it's like a big train line. I'm seeing stuff happen on the beach. I can't even say because it's going on the podcast. There's some people getting up to stuff. Do you know what I'm saying? At like 4 a.m. in the morning. So we go, and it was honestly one of the best stags of my entire life. We had a great time. We did some stuff that what happens in Malgrat stays in Malgrat. And we just had a brilliant time. And to be honest, if you put a map in front of me now, I couldn't now tell you where that was, right? I still don't know. Maybe it didn't exist. I don't know. But for me, that was a place that was nowhere, but has become so legendary, it's now a somewhere, right? And that happens in my life, where I end up in a place where I never expected God to do what he did, but somehow, in some way, God turned up in the most unexpected way. And now that season in my life that I thought was a nothing is now a big something. There's no way I'm going to find my way back to there. I'm going to go back to there. But it was a special moment in my life where a nowhere became a somewhere. And God is in the business of doing that. Just when I thought that my time had finished, disappointed that God didn't do it in the way I thought he was going to do it. But in the middle of a desert, after God did something, God blessed me, God touched me, God healed me, God revived me, and suddenly, in the unexpected, the nowhere became a somewhere. I was at the lowest. I was at my most disappointed. I was at my lowest, at my most longing. But God met me in the middle of nowhere. But that doesn't happen if you leave. Doesn't happen. It doesn't happen if you quit halfway through the process. I want, some things come to an end naturally, right? Some things do come to an end and you need to stop and you need to move on. So you need to establish what's a Bethel, what's a Jericho, and what is the mantle, what's the promises of God. But for me and my wife, when we got married, we wanted to see this through. I want a healthy marriage, as some of you even watching online. But that doesn't happen if I walk away when I get hurt or I hurt her. It only happens when I decide to stay. The beautiful thing is, if you trace this story forward, and a few of you are actually studying this now, are actually doing it in your daily devotionals, you're reading through some stuff every day, follow it from this point, will you, this week? So follow it, and what you'll notice is that Elisha retraces the steps that he went on. So the first place he goes from the Jordan River, we don't even know where it is. It's so insignificant where it was, in the middle of nowhere. We don't even know where it is. But he went from that nowhere place back to Bethel, back to Jericho, and then back to Bethel, and then through to Gilgal, Samaria. He literally went back to the stages that the writer is teaching us about now. But it was different. Because when he goes back to Jericho, the mantle isn't just cast now. He's carrying it. He's wearing it. It's different. God did something in the middle of nowhere that totally changed the game. So he goes to Jericho and says, hey, they've got an issue with one of our springs, and this water that's coming up, it's creating issues. It's making people sick, and we can't grow fresh crops. So he prays over the water. He cleanses it. He sprinkles salt in it and prays over it, wearing the mantle, and suddenly the water is cleansed. He couldn't do that before he was carrying the mantle. And then when he went back to Bethel on his way, no word of a lie, some teenagers with about 50 asbos each, right? Do you remember asbos? They were a thing once, right? That was, okay. Walks up to him, start calling him Baldy, right? I'm not even lying. And it's not just in the Message version either, right? Okay, because we all know that. He calls it, hey, Baldy. Anyway, Elisha turns around to them and he summons some bears out of a local forest to chase these kids away. That is mental on its own. Read it. And then he goes back to where he came from. He heals a woman. He raises someone from the dead. He multiplies this oil so this woman who's really poor can feed herself and her kids. It's the same, but it's different. Because the mantle isn't just cast. He's now carrying it. There's lots of talk about leveling up the north at the minute, which I think is a great idea. Level up the north. Level up, level up, level up, level up. Hey. Level up the north, right? I love it. We have been leveling up the north for ages, but I do think a leveling up of your faith only comes if you don't leave. Elisha leaves the middle of nowhere, goes back to where he came from, but this time it's totally different. This time, the problems that used to paralyze him, Elijah used to do stuff like that. He used to heal people. He used to stand up to the authority. He used to do that. Elisha was just the one who was supporting him, going, yeah, you can do it, yeah, and carry his bags. Now he's the one that's got to do it. He's the one that's got to walk in the mantle that he's carrying. So he goes and he cleanses the water, and he's leveled up because he didn't leave. There were problems that may have paralyzed him. There were people that may have intimidated him. But now, because he is carrying a new authority, a new strength, he's able to deal with it and walk in a different manner. That's my prayer for this church, for our church, that as we have followed in the wake of a phenomenal man of God in Dave, who's now our founding leader, that you and I decide that the cloak won't be cast, but we're going to carry it. We're going to shoulder it for ourselves. So that when you go into your workplace and you find those bullies, suddenly you're able to shake off the intimidation because it's different. You've leveled up because you haven't left. That when you go in your family facing those problems that used to paralyze you, that you're able to deal with it because you've leveled up, because you didn't leave. But we don't get that, guys. We don't get that if we give up. If we give up on what God has asked us to do. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't stop. It's just a Bethel. It's just a Jericho. And if you find yourself in nowhere, that's the right place you need to be. God turned a nowhere into a somewhere, gave Elisha what he promised, but only because he stuck it through and followed what God had said. Not what anybody else had said, but what God had said. Okay, I'm coming to the end of the talk, so everyone knows the safe now. So band, come on stage. Do some suspended chords. to create an atmosphere. Smoke machine, please. Thank you. No, I'm only joking, Joel. Don't do it more now as a joke. Okay. Let's not prank me, all right? This story is really cool, right? Because there's a lot of similarities between Elisha and Jesus. And if you ever study the Bible, you know that he's called a type of Christ, which means he's a foreshadowing that Jesus, when he came, probably like thousands, many hundred years after Elisha was around, he would do all the miracles and teachings of the prophets like Elisha and Elijah, but he would supersede them. He would go one more. And that's how we know. That's an evidential point that we know he's not just a prophet, but he's the Son of God. He goes one step further. But there is a great parallel in this story to Jesus' life. So Jesus gets baptized early in his life. You know, Jesus, the Son of God, came, died for our sins, our brokenness, but not just that, but he came back to life so that we can have an ever-increasing, conquering life. And his kingdom is without end, and it's grace, and it's mercy, and it's hope, and it's for you and your family, your mental health, your physical health, and your time. You know that, Jesus? Right, that's the one I'm talking about. Jesus gets baptized, right? And he doesn't do any miracles before he gets baptized. But then God leads him into a wilderness, right? And you'll find this, if you want to look at it after this, in the book of Luke chapter 4. And it'll be on screen. Luke chapter 4, verse 1 says this: Jesus was full of the Spirit. He left the Jordan. It's the same region Elisha had his own experience. And was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. There, Satan himself met him. And do you remember what happened? He tempts him thrice, as some Bibles say. Thrice! 3 times he tempts him, and every time Jesus combats that temptation with Scripture. Every time he says, Satan, I'm not going to leave what God's asked me to do. As much as it feels good, as much as I'm hungry, as much as I'd love the power, as much as I love the women and the glory, I'm not going to leave what God's asked me to do. At the end of this trial, in verse 14 of the same chapter, it says this: Jesus returned to Galilee in the power of the Spirit, and news about him spread through the whole countryside. So he returns in the power of the Spirit because the mantle's not just been cast over him in his life. The prophecies when he's a baby of who this man's going to be. It's not just a maybe anymore. Suddenly he's walked to a place in the middle of nowhere. He has proved himself. He knows who he is. And now he's walking in a new authority and strength. And from then on, miracle after miracle after miracle. Because he's Jesus. I'm not leaving. Last thing I'd say before we sing together is this. Sometimes I long for the contentedness of my own children. I've got 2 kids, 6 and 4. And sometimes it's really annoying. Do you know what I'm saying, parents? Let's be honest, it's really hard work. Most of the time, especially when they're sleeping, it's a blessing. I long for the contentedness of my kids. And if you've ever been in a car with your kid, so we're traveling somewhere. In fact, why don't you stand to your feet, because we're going to finish in a minute. Thank you. So when we get in the car, we're going somewhere. I've got Google Maps on. They're not watching the phone, like, Dad, make sure you turn that right, or Dad, make sure you carry over that roundabout. They don't do any of that. The only thing they ask is, are we there yet? That's the only thing they ask, right? Standard, are we there yet? And I wish I had that contentedness that I have, and Hannah more than me, but we have driven the kids to hundreds and thousands of different places. So their trust in us to get them there isn't really a question. It's more about the when, right? It's more about, I trust that you're going to get us there. I don't really know how a car works. I don't really know how all this thing is, but you're in the driver's seat, so I'm just going to... And I wish I had that attitude with God, I wish I had that attitude of, I don't need to know every turn and every bend. I don't need to know every step. I don't need to know the how, God. I just need to know the who. I just need to know, sometimes we get so irate and be backseat drivers when we just need to understand that we have a Jehovah driver. We have a Jehovah driver. We have someone in the driver's seat who's taken us in this direction. I get my kids from A to B all the time, so why is this journey any different? God's taken you from A to B so many times. Why is now any different? It deserves a better response than that. King David says this in the book of Psalms, which again is in the Old Testament where we've been. Psalm 30 says, his anger, God's anger, lasts only for a moment, but his favor lasts a lifetime. Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning. In the middle of nowhere, it became a somewhere, because God delivered in the most unexpected way everything that he promised. And it wasn't where I thought it would be, in the way I thought it would be, but thank God I didn't leave. Thank God I didn't walk away when I got discouraged or disillusioned. Thank God I didn't throw in the towel. The truth is this, God doesn't leave you. If he is the driver, he will never pull up on the side of the road, leave you halfway high and dry. He'll never do that. Jesus himself at the end of his life before he left said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. I'm going to be with you to the end of the age. And friend, if you've never heard this story of Jesus before, the biggest encouragement I can give you is this. All the time of your life, God could have walked away. God could have said, this dude is too broken. He's got too many issues. This girl, man, she is messed up. She looks great on Instagram, but what's going behind the scenes? Even I can't fix that, and I'm God. He never does that. He never leaves. He's never walked away. And so if you're in here and you're like, you know what, Ben, this sounds great. This kingdom, this faith, this Jesus sounds good. It is. Because you have a guarantee, a God-given guarantee, that it doesn't matter whether you turn up broken or bent or however, you turn up and Jesus is, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Come, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I will never, hey, if you've got faith in me, you can do all things. In fact, greater things you will do when you're with me. Friend, the offer is on the table, and you're welcome to believe in Jesus. He's never left you so far, and now the alarm clock's gone off, and you're saying, Jesus, I'm not going to leave you either. So come on, eyes closed all around the place. Let's create a moment of choice. If you're in here and you're saying yes to Jesus for the first time, I just want you to listen to my prayer, and I want you to receive it, and I want you to pray it in your own mind. Dear Jesus, just pray this in your own mind. Dear Jesus, I believe you're the Son of God and that you really did come to die for me, for my sin, for my brokenness. So, Jesus, today I stand before you and I say, you are the Son of God. You are the Lord of all. I was following money. I was following sex. I was following power. I was following pleasure. But now I know, Jesus, that you're the road to redemption. Thank you for never leaving me, even though I didn't believe in you. I choose today to put my trust in you, and I won't leave you either. Help me to believe. Fill me with your Spirit. Amen. If that was you today, if you prayed that for the first time, if you believe that and receive that for yourself, you have received something called salvation. It's an exchange of old to new. What used to punish you, hurt you, break you is no more. You are free and you are liberated. And we have a great bunch of people called the Welcome Team. Welcome Team, give us a wave. They're just at the back there and they're dotted round. They want to put a free Bible and some information in your hand to help you on your next few steps. I'm going to ask you just in a minute, just turn around, give them a wave, give them a nod, and they'll come over and try and say, hey, well done. That's great. I encourage you, before we do that, because we're going to clap you, then we're going to sing, don't leave. If God's asked you to do something, don't do it. Don't give up. Don't give in, because he will turn a nowhere into a somewhere. Does anybody receive that today? I receive that for my own self and my family. If you make yourself known, if you responded to Jesus, come on today, Smith Church. Let's give it up for all those people that found their way back to God. Thanks, band. Lead us as we sing.